Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Critical Thinking is today because it's in English today, but the name is Pensamiento, Crítico, and I'm here with Kelly Poquiz Burke. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'd love to have you. And, I don't do like the typical introduction because we're going to start getting to know you little by little. And, but first of all, Kelly, let me tell them, Kelly was working in my team. We were at Avocado from Mexico. I was her boss. But now, that was a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
more or less. And now we both left very soon from each other. And now we're very good friends.
Yeah.
And we're partners in a new venture that we're creating. But we're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, super
It's
excited.
a surprise.
I know. Love surprises.
Kelly, you have a beautiful story, and we were talking about it before. I have heard that story several times. I never get tired of listening to that. And it's kind of a parallel, your professional life and something that happened in your personal life right when you were getting to the peak of your career.
Yeah.
But let's start by talking about both in parallel right from that moment.
Yeah.
Unless you want to say something from before, then go ahead.
Yeah. I think to give a little bit more context, so my parents, they immigrated from the Philippines to the United States. And back in the 80s, my mom, she came to the US with a suitcase and $25 in her pocket. So she always drilled into me the expectations, high expectations, high standards, that you needed to go do well in school so that you could get a good job. And then once you get a good job, then you would find success. And so that was the narrative that I told myself, that's how you get success. You got to climb the corporate ladder. You got to do your best, your hardest. So after graduating from business school, I got recruited to go to work at Frito-Lay. And I spent about 3 and almost 4 years there. And one of the roles that was my dream job, was just my absolute dream job, was to be a brand manager on a big brand. Like, I had literally written that down on a piece of paper when I applied for business school, because that's the whole reason why I wanted to go. I knew I needed to get more business acumen. And so going back to school was going to put me on that path, because prior to that, I was, more on the creative track, working in advertising agencies. So I had finally made it to Frito-Lay, and I was up for this promotion. I had gotten it, and I was the brand manager on Doritos.
And you were in a very fast track, right?
Yeah, it was, that was like everyone's that was the golden job, right? Because you got to work on Super Bowl ads, you got to meet celebrities, you were working on really big equity projects with very substantial budgets. And so it was an absolute dream to be able to, take what I learned from all my years in advertising agencies and now be the main client.
Just for context, how old were you?
I think I had just turned 30. Yeah, I had just turned 30. And for me I felt like I had made it in a lot of ways. There was a specific moment when we were shooting Super Bowl, and I just kind of thought to myself, wow, this is incredible. I love my job. I love my life. This is awesome. And shortly after I became the brand manager on Doritos, about 6 months later, actually, let me scooch back. The day I got the job was actually the same day I had originally gotten news from my doctor that I had a lump in my breast, and she wanted me to go get it checked out. So I went, I got some additional testing, and they basically said to me that you're so young, you have no family history of cancer, don't worry about it. Come back in 6 months, let us know if anything changes. So I was on a work trip in LA. I was about to activate this big Grammys action for the brand. And I remember feeling that bump just a little bit bigger. And so I, told my husband about it. I said, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to get this checked out when I get home. And so fast forward, I actually found out I was pregnant. And I just attributed the bump to, maybe just being
Hormones or
hormones, right? Like just like a function of being pregnant, and it's a side effect of that. So, but I still went in, got checked out by my doctor. And she said, yeah, it has actually gotten bigger. Let's just go do some testing. Let's go get a biopsy. And so I remember getting the call as I was walking into a Super Bowl meeting at work. We were going to debrief on something. And I saw my doctor calling, and I excused myself. I knew that it wasn't a good sign that she was calling. So I found a small conference room at the office. And I remember hearing, like, I'm so sorry, Kelly, but it's cancer. And so at 30 years old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer while
While pregnant.
while 8 weeks pregnant with my daughter. I hadn't even told my parents that I was pregnant yet because it was so early on in the pregnancy. I wanted to wait a little bit longer. But after I had gotten that news, I immediately went home. And that night I called my parents to come over. And in one, sitting, I had to break the news of the joy of the pregnancy, but also the sadness of getting a breast cancer diagnosis. And just a few weeks later, so this happened February of 2020, and March 10th, 2020, the entire world shuts down because of the global pandemic. And so I had this path of, you're going to do your treatment, and then you're going to be working while you're doing that, and then you're going to deliver your baby, and then you're going to have surgery. And so all of that got jumbled up and mixed up. I immediately had to go in for surgery because they weren't sure of what was going to happen with the hospital system and the healthcare system, and they didn't want to suppress my immune system by sending me to chemotherapy first. And for a few months, it was just nonstop doctor's appointments, being alone through that entire process, because at first my husband, tried to be at as many appointments as possible. But then when the pandemic happened, he wasn't able to join me in those moments. So really, I remember walking through the hospital for my surgery and checking in, and there was no one to check me in, and thinking like, wow, this is like a zombie apocalypse. This is so crazy. But the only person who was with me that entire time was my daughter in my womb. And it really gave me just the purpose and the passion and the drive to stick it through, to like find the inner strength, even though I was scared. So all in all, after going through treatment, I ended up beating cancer, delivering a healthy baby girl, and going back to work after all that happened, and resuming my job. And I thought at the time that all of these things were going to stunt my growth. I thought
That's
that
what you were thinking?
that's what I was thinking. I actually remember telling my husband when I found out that I was pregnant. I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to be." Oh my gosh, she's gonna hear this one day. But I was just so surprised.
Yeah.
Because I thought that I was on this upward trajectory. Like this is
Especially knowing you that you're such a rule follower
I know.
and so committed to your path, whatever you believe
Yeah.
that is like how, I mean, it's kind of something blocking your
Yeah.
path that you obediently wants
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah, it was I saw it as an obstacle, and I didn't have that perspective at the time, that how much becoming a mom was actually going to make me a better leader and a better, just have more clarity in my own purpose in life.
Why is that?
Why? Because of just the unique situation that we went through together. I really believe that she saved me.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not found out that I was pregnant, I probably wouldn't have checked out that lump
Yeah.
and going through that entire situation during the pandemic, being like physically alone, going to every single, when you're pregnant, there's all this joy and you have your doctor's appointments and like you get to go, see the sonogram with your partner or whatnot. I didn't have that. Like it was
Wow.
just me and her the entire way. And so coming out of that situation, I truly felt like, oh my gosh, my purpose is to be her mom and to show her like what is the meaning of this life that we've been given, the second chance that we've been given, and to do it in a way that really was fulfilling and brought joy to our lives.
Mhm. I know that you wanted to say something else?
No, you're
Okay.
good, you're good.
I know that all that situation that it seems I cannot even fathom. I mean, how scary and lonely and terrifying was. I know because we have talked so much about it that it gives you a new perspective on life.
Yeah.
And that new perspective actually led you to one of the most surprising things that you have done in my eyes, which is a career change
Yeah.
from that very, very successful. I think that we're missing a piece, right? Because after that, then you
Yeah.
came to work at Avocado from Mexico in my team. And we worked together for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then if there was one person that somebody will have told me that is going to leave and change career, I will have say, no
No way.
freaking way. And because you don't take decisions lightly.
Yeah.
You're you have a plan, you follow your plan. And let's to get into this topic now, I can tell you that changing careers is one of the most courageous, creative decisions of anyone's life, because when you decide to create a project, it may work, it may don't work. You're going to do everything about it to work, but it's your life and it's your career. And going back to the way that you describe your path and your career and what you were supposed to do, you making that decision I was blown away. I want to understand your mind.
Yeah.
How you went from this is the career, this is my path. Now you made the decision to go to work for Avocado from Mexico. You were in a really good path there. What happened there?
Yeah. I think going back to the beginning of my story where my parents told me like this is the formula for success, and I was trying to follow that roadmap to the T and climb the ladder and get to the top. Like if I'm being super honest, I had ambitions to be a CMO. That's what I wanted to do. That's what
Now you're a CEO.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I thought I was passionate about marketing. I was passionate about building brands, and I think good at it. So I think what changed in me was that coming out of cancer and surviving that traumatic experience, I realized just how important having alignment between your personal and professional life was. I experienced burnout in so many ways. I think coming back from cancer, I thought I had to prove myself. I had to prove my value and prove my worth, that like, hey, I can still keep up with everybody else. I can still outwork anybody else.
And you felt that after the cancer, not before?
I think I felt it after the cancer because I had this sense of urgency for my life. I felt like I needed to make the most out of this second chance. And so what I thought was the original lesson, which was I've been given the second chance, let me go just like crush it, ended up being a recipe for absolute burnout and just not alignment with my values and what my priorities were in life. I remember was traveling a lot for my job, and we were going to conferences, we were speaking, we were doing lots of activations. And I think after one of those conferences, I came home and I asked my daughter, just tucking her into bed at night, I said, how can I be a better mommy? And she looks me in the eyes, and she's 3 years old, and she goes, don't leave us.
Mm.
And I remember just hearing those words from her and feeling like mind blown about where were my priorities? Like that was what was so tough for me. I thought that I was doing all this stuff to show her, hey, you can have a ambitious career and raise a family too. You could have it all. And I think for many women in my generation, we grew up under the guise of lean in. That was the big book coming out, and it was all about how Sheryl Sandberg was a call to action for women in corporate America to lean into your jobs, lean into your corporate jobs, and you can do anything.
I know, right?
And I think that was actually a lie.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things, but there will be trade-offs. And I came to realize that in this phase of my life, that I didn't want to trade time with my daughter for anything else. I didn't want to trade being the person who got to pick her up and drop her off every day. There was a point where the people at the daycare didn't know who I was. I'd get carded because I couldn't get out of work on time to pick her up, and I had to be there early, so I couldn't drop her off. And it was those moments where you're like, what am I doing this for?
Remember one time that we were working together? I think that we were at an airport traveling or something, and you asked me, how did you find balance when you kids, being a mom and a professional? And I told you I didn't.
Yeah. That was the most honest thing you could have ever told me. And I think when you told me that, I realized, oh, this is what I'm going to have to sacrifice if I want to get to there. And I think I just recalibrated what success meant to me. And after a lot of reflection and planning and hard conversations with my husband, it became very clear that I didn't want to just run from burnout. I didn't just want to, replace one company with another company. I really needed to take a step back to understand, where are my priorities again? Where's my North Star?
How do you find your values? When at what point you say, because you say, well, it was not aligned with my values.
Yeah.
And we have talked about it because it has to do with this new venture that we're working on. But a lot of people don't know their values, which is surprising. What are your values, and how did you realize where they were?
Yeah. So I like to do this exercise where, and it comes from an experience I had. So when I went to my uncle's funeral, there was one word that they kept repeating over and over and over again. And I thought, what's the word that people are going to say about me when I'm gone? And I know that's kind of morbid, but what are the couple words that I want people to say about me? I want people to say that, I was courageous, that I was generous, that I was inspiring, that, and so I anchor my values kind of around those words, being authentic, but really in terms of career success, what I think are the most important values that determine my definition of success today is freedom and flexibility. Because I want to have the freedom and flexibility to do the work that I love and to do work that I'm passionate about. And having gone through cancer, realizing that we spend so much of our lives working, we spend about a third of our lives working, I want the work that I do to have meaning, to fulfill me, to, live out my purpose. And so I was able to take some time and think through what were the things in my life that gave me joy? What actually lit me up and gave me lots of energy? And one of the things was the podcast, because I was interviewing people who loved what they did for a living. I was asking them, how do you get there? What do you learn on the way? And it was me realizing that these conversations were like coaching conversations.
Right.
We're peeling back the layers. We're being authentic. We're inspiring other people. And so it just clicked in my mind, like, how can I do this for a living? Well, I can just be a coach.
It was not something that you could kind of plug in your marketing career, something like that.
I mean,
Did you thought about it?
I guess I could have gone that path, but I think I felt like I wanted to create something new. I wanted to create something that was just like an idea from the ground up.
Let's look at that transformation, recreation, whatever you call it, of
Yeah.
your career as a creative project.
Yeah.
How there was one moment that you have an aha moment, like you have in a creative endeavor when you are like, the stereotypical
Yeah.
light bulb, like bling, I could do something different and be happier.
Yeah.
Or it was a gradual process.
I think removing myself from my full-time job and slowing myself down just really gave me the space to let my mind wander and to allow myself to explore and be curious. And then I would start to listen to podcasts and read books and then see like, oh, this person who has a podcast also has a book, and well, then how do they actually make money? And okay, they're a coach too. And then I would see, oh, and then they're also speaking. And so I would start to piece together, like, this is possible. Like, there are people out there who just do this for a living.
So that's super interesting what you are saying, because what you needed, maybe it was not necessarily to change careers, but you needed a space to use your talents and your passions. So imagine how wonderful will have been if corporate, for example, would have given you that space.
Yeah.
Us, me, anyone
Yeah.
that will give you that space where you can be an entrepreneur
Oh, yeah.
and you can use your passions, your talents, align your values within an organization.
Yeah.
Then you will give all that to someone, to an organization. But it was the lack of that freedom that led you to move on your own. So it's on my own or it's not, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think you could totally find that creativity and that space to carve out your own project and be an entrepreneur. And it's not to say that I wasn't, I thought about going back. Like, I had every intention to go back. But there was something that was really just tugging at my heart that said, you've got a bigger purpose. And I needed to go on a journey to explore that. And so for me, how I define my purpose, tying it back to my career now, is it's to help people courageously develop their careers and then become the fearless leaders that they were meant to be. And going through that process of becoming a coach, getting, certified and trained, learning the craft of coaching, I realized that maybe my destiny was never to be that person, but it was to help that person become their fullest potential.
I love that. I love that. And also speaking about your talents, and I have always told you this, you have Woo, which is Woo. So we went together through a exercise to explore our strength. Out of 35 strengths, what are the top strengths? Woo, which is how would you explain Woo?
I think Woo is the ability to
charm.
Win over others.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
win
it's
over
charm
others. Yeah.
So that's one of Kelly's strengths, and it's true. And one of the things is that you are such an empathetic listener, And also you have this ability to bring the best out of people. And so we have had a couple of sessions.
Yeah.
We exchanged digital, I don't know.
We bartered.
We barter. I talked to Kelly about, I don't know, tactics for social media, etc. And then Kelly coached me, executive, and I feel like I'm talking to a therapist.
Oh gosh.
100%. Actually, last time that we talked, and I was having some little conflict with some project and some people that I was working with, and it was like magical because I was so clear next to that. So you definitely, anyone who worked with you is very, very happy and I mean, lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But my job as the coach is really to help you like sort and organize and gain that awareness and help you facilitate the growth, right? I think what's so powerful about coaching is that the coach does not give the answer to the coachee.
It's like a therapy. It's like therapy, right?
Sort of. I mean, I'm asking you questions, but I'm not licensed to give, psychological advice. But I think there's a therapeutic nature to it because you're starting to unpack a lot of the things that you're holding on to in your mind. And as leaders, the further up you go, the more lonely it gets. You don't have, the trust of a partner to just dump all of this information to and sort through, like, how do you get over that obstacle? But I mean, you're the one doing the hard work. I'm just here as your guide.
But you are the conductor from the, I think maybe what you have in the back of your mind or unconscious and our unconscious level, and kind of facilitate that understanding
Yeah.
through your communication, which is an amazing other skill that you have.
Oh, thank you.
So you're definitely using your best skills. So you are a great example of someone who courageously made that difficult decision and found happiness after all. But a lot of people, I think, that is in that specific point where you're not completely happy in your career, at your job, wherever you are, but the fear of leaving everything, the uncertainty of leaving everything behind. So what will you tell people? And now you do that for a living.
Yeah.
So what will you take people what is that one step that will unlock you from really going after your full potential?
Yeah. There's so many tools that you can use, but I think the one mindset change that I had recently was that the comes from self-belief. That there's so much that we can't control in our lives. Like, you might think that stability is within your corporate job, and if you just put your head down and work, things will be fine. But the economy could collapse. You could get laid off. And what you have to cling on to is that you can't control those factors. But what you can control is your belief in yourself. And so if you're scared to make a change, if you're scared to make a move because you are uncomfortable with the idea of instability, just know that the stability comes from within, and you get to make your own destiny.
How, because that is for someone that really, maybe you were married, you have the support of your husband, but for someone who doesn't have that notion of stability come from within, will say, well, I cannot go to the grocery store with stability. I cannot pay my mortgage with stability. How they gain that courage and how can they use that self-confidence to just go for it?
I mean, you're the poster child of how to find this confidence to go for it.
I jump myself from whatever and I build my wings in the way down. But I think that I'm maybe the exception, which, like, don't do that at home.
Or do it.
But I think I have an overconfidence in myself that have worked so far, and but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to other people.
Why not?
That's a good question. Now you're psychoanalyst. I think, okay, yes, I get it. What is important is to build your resilience before. For example, I know that my resilience is very, very, very strong. And I know that I can fall and smash myself against the floor, and then I will pick myself up.
Yeah.
So I think that the trick is build your resilience before.
Yeah.
And then just fly.
Well, so that's a really good point. It's like, how did you build your resilience?
Exactly.
You fell, right? So you got to be willing to fall in order to build that muscle, to build that grit. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say like the stability comes from within. Like it's the self-esteem, it's the self-belief. It's that you can't change the factors in the world. Things are going to knock you down. You're going to have suffering. You might get cancer, right? But it doesn't, the path that you take doesn't determine your destination. You get to decide where you end up.
So I understand then is the fear of failure, of suffering from failure, what stops most people to get themselves unstuck in an unhappy job.
I think so. I think it's the fear of discomfort, of failure, of not the grass isn't always greener is what we hear. But if the grass isn't greener, just water it.
Were you? Yeah, exactly, exactly. Were you scared when you made that decision?
I was so freaking scared. I remember calling my best friend the night before, having a complete panic attack and saying, like, this is scarier than me getting my cancer diagnosis. And she was like, why? And I was like, because I'm choosing this for myself. Like, this is a choice I'm making. No one's forcing me to quit. Like, it's just me, like, jumping off of the ledge with, like, nothing to catch me. Though I did prepare financially, I will say. But, jumping off the ledge with nothing to catch me. And it's just me pushing myself off. And she said, well, what happens if you fail? And I said, well, then I'll go back and I'll find a job. And she said, okay.
There you go. You got it.
So you think through the worst case scenario. If you're scared of something, think through the worst case scenario and then find a solution to the worst case scenario. And once you find that solution, then everything becomes figure outable.
Yes, I love that. Honestly, I have never gone that far as you have a blind trust that everything is going to work out, and I don't even want to think about the possibility of failure. But if you want to plan, it's good to think about if it fails, this is my plan B, and then done.
Yeah.
Do you think now that how many people do you coach right now? You coach several people, right?
Yeah. I think I've got about 10 active clients right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you loving it?
I do love my clients. I
love it.
I think I love having these connections and conversations, but I think what I get the most fulfillment from is the transformation that they experience. I had a client that just decided to take a career break, and she's been in corporate for a long time, decided that she was going to travel the world. And she told me the other day that had we not had that conversation, she wouldn't have found the courage to do that for herself. And I'm not trying to get everybody to quit their jobs. That's definitely not my goal.
Yeah.
But I think it's about understanding what is your North Star and how do I get in more alignment with what I want to accomplish in my life.
Yeah. Because sometimes you have, and we have talked about this because we have talked a lot about a lot of things. We go to lunch and it's a 3-hour lunch.
I know.
And it will be amazing to...
They're kicking us out and they're sweeping. They're you got to get out of here.
It will be amazing to record those conversations. That's why Kelly's here now. We're having that conversation in front of all of you. But it's also, you could help them to find that stability within their organizations, right? So it not necessarily everybody have to leave, but there's also, I mean, there's everywhere there's relationship, there's some conflicts, right? Because we're humans.
Yeah.
But it's how we figure out how to untangle
Right.
those maybe mental models and, interact with other people and with ourselves within an organization that will work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about understanding like your leadership style, having that self-awareness to how do you work with others? How do you play with others? Like work is a team sport. So it's not, I actually found coaching, my very first coach I found because I was having a hard time with a grumpy coworker. And I'm this like, 20 something year old and I'm like bubbly and, always just happy go lucky. And I had a coworker who was just so grumpy all the time. And it was really hard for me to work with that person. And so I found a coach to help me navigate like conflict resolution. And then I found strategies, like we would talk, figured out better communication strategies so I could navigate that relationship better.
Because we talk a lot here at the podcast and in my page about critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those conflicts, they don't really exist outside. It exists in our mind.
Yeah.
And we need to find them and untangle those conflicts within our minds, and everything kind of untangle itself outside. Do you see that pattern in the people that you coach, that many times the conflicts, we have them inside our heads?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think our mind is like our greatest tool, but it's also like our biggest barrier sometimes. So if we can reframe that obstacle to be more of a propeller for growth, then that's how we overcome that and move forward and use challenges to not just survive, but to thrive. I think going through cancer, I realized that positivity was like half of it was physical, but half of it was a mental game. And leveraging positivity and optimism actually improved my chances and improved my recovery. So having gone through that in my life, I realized that, I can apply this resilient mindset to other things and teach people how to do that as well.
Is that where you're super successful in what you're doing right now? It seems that you are building. You're a builder in such an amazing, organized, disciplined way.
I'm gonna send this to my mom.
Definitely. I'm gonna give a little bit of a teaser on what we are doing, but I'm not going to say this. So I had. I've been thinking about doing like a new venture, and it's something that get me very, very excited. But then I go to Kelly, and then I ask Kelly, "Do you want to do this with me?" And I present it to her, and then Kelly think a lot about everything. Well, let me think about it. And then you came to me, and then she said that, "But Yvonne, you can do this by yourself." And I say, no, I don't. Not only I cannot do it by myself, I only can do it with you.
Oh my gosh.
And it's because of those skills that you have that are so grounding. How you identify, I'm going to let you say, how you identify that is anything that you start, you finish. And I mean, it's a combination of so many things, but how you describe yourself?
Ooh, this is a good question. Well, first of all, I absolutely think you could do it yourself, but
no, I don't.
I'll take all the compliments. Yeah. I think I'm just a very goal-oriented person. I often will write down goals, markers, achievements, and when I get something in my head, I just like do the thing.
Let me change the question. Will you say, if you have to use one word, will you say that is discipline, maybe
Mm.
commitment, an unbreakable commitment with the things that you say that you're going to do.
Yeah.
Consistency. What is it? Because somebody else, may need this.
I think it's resilience. If I had to boil it down, it's resilience and grit. I think I have a lot of like passion and perseverance for seeing things through, for seeing something come to life. And I know I talk about cancer a lot, but like having that experience in my life, I just recognize the preciousness of time. And there's this one amazing line in Hamilton, the musical,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, why do you write like you're running out of time? And I think it's because I stared, like the end of my life in the face. And
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that like this time that we're given is so precious. And so I want to make the most of it. And I want to not just spend time with my daughter, but I also want to build something that, maybe one day she'll take over.
A legacy.
A legacy, yeah.
What is next for you?
What's next for me is I am currently in a public speaking. I'm trying to become a professional speaker. So I am working on a transformative speech. I'm going to hopefully go on more speaking tours, but also just continuing to build the business, coach more clients, help people navigate their careers and become better leaders, and really doubling down on that and seeing how can I use my gifts, my talents, my time to have more purpose in the world.
Love it. And now we're going to give the announcement before we finish. And we're going to be talking a lot about this in other platforms, but Kelly and I are partnering in, it is a pretty robust platform called Brand Me.
We have built careers around brand building and marketing, and we realize that there's this opportunity to take those tools and frameworks and especially our own career stories and journeys and share that with people and package that in a way that you can take your personal brand and build it and tell your story in the way that you want to. And I'm super excited to partner with you on this, Yvonne, because you are like, I came to Avocados from Mexico because I saw you and the personal brand that you built, and I wanted to learn from you in that regard. And you have been nothing but generous to me and mentoring me and teaching me the way. And it's such a beautiful thing. I think you'll realize that, and it goes back to this, the stability is from self-belief.
Yeah.
It's when you believe in yourself, when you're unashamed of putting out your story and telling your story, you can change people's lives.
Oh, that's beautiful, Kelly. And you say building my personal brand. I didn't know that I was building my personal brand, but now that I look back, I know that I have been building my personal brand since I came to this country 24 years ago. I was no one, I didn't know anyone, and I intuitively knew that I want them to know me. And if you look back, that is what is building your brand. I knew that I want them to know me and my talents, and I start putting them out there in form of a narrative and words and the most authentic me. And it worked. So when I got to this point that I had that idea, because I was in one of those moments I'm free to do whatever I want. What is what I'm most excited about? And I realized that is when I am building that brand. But I say I cannot dedicate my 100% of my time building my brand. I want to do this for other people.
Yeah.
And my experience for the past 24 years, because I have been doing it in an ongoing basis, came to very, very, very clear vision of what we need to do. And then, Kelly, you come in it was a perfect compliment.
Yeah.
It was perfect. And then we invited also two other co-founders that are not here today, but Nicole Ramirez.
And Mila Miller.
Yes. And so the four of us are going to be building this amazing platform that is called Brand Me. And we are going to be giving more details and inviting everybody to join us.
Yeah, we're so excited. And I think there's just so much opportunity, especially in this day and age where we have so many tools at our disposal. Like there's no reason why you shouldn't be actively building your personal brand. And we're going to show you how to do that in a way that is that is authentic to you and that really lets your story shine, but also promotes your company.
Yeah, totally. That was my next thing that I was going to say is like, when you are linked to a company, your personal brand, professional brand, executive brand will impact the value of the brand of your company. Think about it in a LinkedIn post. Anytime that you comment, anytime that you post anything, at the top of that post is the name of your company. And many times we are doing it, but not necessarily aligned to what is the company mission, ambition. So if you are in the right company and your values are aligned with the values of that company, it makes all the sense in the world to tie those together and create a strategy that grow them simultaneously.
Yeah.
So we will send more information, but we hope to see everybody there.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming. And it was, again, I say that one of my favorite things about this podcast is that I get to talk to friends for an hour. Again, I have an excuse, so I love, like always, this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. I loved having this conversation with you.
Thank you. And to all of you, again, there's a lot of amazing content out there in the internet. So I really appreciate you spending some time here. And to Movida Hispana, my gratitude for producing this podcast, not only this podcast, but also amplifying so many Hispanic voices of all the other podcasts that live under the Movida Hispana platform.